Now, John, obviously we have brought you in here tonight because we do have the High Court case next week about our name challenge. I get a lot of emails about this. We see a lot of comments online, people wondering what's going to happen. Is the party going to collapse? Will our votes go to the Liberal Party? What on earth going on? Can you please explain it for us, John?
Yeah, well, there are some very weird conspiracy theories, and I don't know how to respond to them because I don't always understand what it is they're trying to say. But I'll start with just the simple facts. Firstly, if you want to get a simple written version of this, ldp.org.au/name, and you can get the story of how the party was named, some of the back and forth that's happened over the last 20 years. And it's probably worth touching on some of that. We sometimes get accused, as the Liberal Party has, of trying to crib their name, trying to steal their name. And we do, Liberal Democrats has the word liberal in it, but it actually wasn't even true 20 years ago. The genesis of our name didn't come from trying to steal the Liberal Party name. It came from the several factors, the main one of which is I think we are truly the embodiment of the liberal, democratic, classical liberal tradition, the oldest living political tradition in history. So it seems perfectly accurate to name yourself after what you actually believe. Secondly, if anything, we were more inspired. I was more inspired in naming the party actually by, and I maybe shouldn't admit this, but by the Democrats. At the time, they're long forgotten now, but at the time, the Democrats were the third party, right? The Greens were a small nothing party at the time. The Democrats were the third party of choice, the balance of power party. They had started as a somewhat liberalish party. And by then, by 20 years ago, they had basically evolved into just another left-wing party. Right, which so often happens, right? So they had evolved into a left-wing party, and I wanted to come in and say, well, we are now the standard bearer of actual liberal version of Democrats' politics. We're the liberal version of the Democrats, a liberal third-party alternative, meaning classical liberal, not liberal party. So the idea that we're trying to steal their name wasn't true to start with. I think there is a healthy vote out there from people who like the idea of liberalism. I think the word liberalism has a positive connotation for a lot of people, not because they associate it with ScoMo or all the other sellouts and hacks in the illiberal party that's falsely named, but because there are still a significant portion of Australians who like liberalism, live and let live, that basic idea. So I think it is an accurate name and an appropriate one, and it's one we've had for over 20 years now. So we were only federally registered under this name in 2008, but we were registered first in the ACT over 20 years ago and have kept that registration continuously as the Liberal Democratic Party and the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Party has complained from time to time, as did the Democrats. But I thought we'd got past that. I thought we'd gone past their fatwa against minor parties and other people trying to use legitimate political terms until something seemed to have happened last year. Now, I don't want to point the finger or make accusations, but I will note that at the exact same time that David Limbrick and Tim Quilty were going gangbusters, and David Limbrick was declared the real opposition leader in Victoria, and the party was riding that wave of success in Victoria, and then Campbell Newman and John Ruddock and Ross Cameron joined the party, and we had a massive influx of members and an influx of cash and an influx of excitement in the party. Coincidentally, the next day, the Liberal Party teamed up with the Labor Party to rush through legislation in lightning speed. No committee, no consideration, rushed it through both houses in a week. And they did it to introduce entirely unprecedented laws that exist nowhere in the world that give established party a monopoly on generic political terms. Now, I understand some people out there don't particularly like our party. I get that. But that sentence I just said should worry everyone, even if you didn't particularly like our party, that they rushed through legislation that's unprecedented to give themselves a monopoly. And it's not just that the Liberal Party's given themselves a monopoly on the word liberal. They've given established parties a monopoly on any word currently used. So no other party can use the word Christian. No other party can use the word socialist. No other party can use the word Labor. No other party can use the word secular. No other party can use the word pirate or senior. Or there's any number of words now that can only have one official version, which is nutty. I mean, I think it's nutty in general. I think the example of the socialists is particularly a good example. There's 3 Socialist Party registered in Australia, and they're all very different sorts of socialists that hate each other. You may know that about socialists. They have maybe a bit like libertarians, more factions than people. But the only thing that the Leninist will hate more than a capitalist would be a Trotskyist, right? They hate each other. The idea of forcing them all into one party and only one party can use the word socialist I think, makes a mockery of this whole law they've introduced. So anyway, we have not stood idly by. This is a direct attack on, freedom of political speech, and obviously an attack directed at our party. So we've decided to fight back, which I think we were really kind of obliged to fight back and not take this lying down. We've taken this to the High Court, and the argument there is that this law is an unprecedented law that exists nowhere else in the world and nowhere in our history, is an attack on the implied right to freedom of political speech. Now, we don't have a Bill of Rights in Australia. We don't have freedom of speech written into our Constitution, but the High Court long ago interpreted our Constitution as giving us an implied right to freedom of political speech. And we think there's a pretty good case to be made that this law that the government's introduced has crossed the line in terms of impinging our ability to use generic political words, not just us, but especially us. So that's the case coming up. A lot of people would have heard that case is coming up. It is set now for next week on a Tuesday, so 6 days away. So it's getting very close. It's been a slow burn for a while in the background. We've all been working away very hard, especially JR and myself and a few others. But it's now really coming to a head. So I would encourage people to keep an eye out for this. Regardless of what you wish to happen or think we should have done, something very big is dropping next Tuesday. So please keep an eye out for this High Court case. Now, I should say the COVID mania has meant, of course, that they've shut the courts so that no one can actually go in and watch it live themselves. But the court hearing will happen on Tuesday. Within a couple of days after that, we should hear a result. And so that's a very big moment. Now, one of the things that people get worried about is what happens if we lose. Now, I think we'll win. I think we've got a good case. And I'm looking forward to it because then we get to do a lap of honor and David versus Goliath, standing up against the government, using all the power of the government solicitors. So I think we've got a good chance. But of course, one thing people worry about is what happens if we lose. I think some of the rumor mill says if we lose, we get deregistered and all our votes somehow automatically pass to someone else. I think that's the rumor of the day. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, I hear that a lot. Yes.
A couple of things to note. There is no chance that we're going to be deregistered. That's not an option. So firstly, I think we'll win. Secondly, if we don't win, there is a very good chance that we go to the election with our current name anyway, for several reasons that I can't go into here. The absolute worst case scenario is that we stay registered with a slightly different name. So there is no option on the table of us not existing at this election. There is no option on the table of our votes secretly going elsewhere. Well, I should mention also, there is no way for our votes to secretly go elsewhere. That's just not how democracy works, right? People determine their own votes and their own preferences. So there is no such thing as that weird conspiracy theory. But you don't have to worry about that because there is no option of us not being on the ballots. We will be running. And I think it's very likely we'll be, well, I'd say we'll be running as the Liberal Democrats. That is what I think is, well, I can't guarantee the future. So it's 99% likely. And the other 1% isn't deregistration. So fear not. But anyway, the High Court, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen in the High Court. I'm not a lawyer. It comes down to various things that would take too long to explain, and I probably wouldn't explain them correctly anyway. But we've been led to believe by several people smarter than us that we've got a better than 50% chance, but nothing's known in the High Court. But either way, it's a very interesting day, a very important day for the party. And I'll encourage you all to tune in, to look out for it, get involved in the discussion, and let's make sure people are paying attention to this moment when David takes on Goliath.